Hello, I'm Dr. Karen with Embrace Life Ohm and MotherCore, and in today's video we're going to talk about how electric lighting causes breast cancer. Now this is part of a continuing series on light and your health, and we highly recommend that you watch the first part in our series, The Basics, to better understand today's video. In the 1960s, researchers realized they could reliably promote breast cancer growth in laboratory rodents by simply leaving the lights on all night. They subsequently realized that the primary reason for this was that when they left the lights on, they decreased the melatonin production by the rodents, and melatonin is a potent cancer inhibitor, both by interacting with estrogen and through other mechanisms. So if they had a rodent with a little bit of cancer growth, which we'll represent with this piece of yarn, and they turned the lights off for 12 hours during the day, the rodent would produce its full dose of melatonin. The melatonin would aggressively impede the cancer's growth, and the immune system might be able to take care of that little bit of cancer completely. On the other hand, if you have the same cancer, but you leave the lights on for 24 hours, there will be less melatonin, which will be less effective at impeding the cancer. So at the end of the 24 hours, you might have a little bit of the cancer still remaining. If this continues night after night, then you might have gradual increase of more and more cancer growth. The good news is that probably about half of human breast cancers are sensitive to melatonin. In these cases, increasing the melatonin at any time can either prevent the cancer or slow the progress of a cancer that's already been diagnosed. In this video, we're going to show you the evidence that suppression of melatonin production by bright lights is important for causing human breast cancer, and then talk about how you can increase your melatonin levels. About 20 years after the initial research with rodents, a researcher named Richard Stevens suggested there might be an application to humans. Richard Stevens noted that for every 10 cases of breast cancer in the developed world, there were only 2 cases in the developing world. Now, 4 of these excess cases could be explained from known factors, such as differences in birth rates and differences in access to accurate diagnoses. But the other 4 cancers could not be explained. Richard Stevens suggested that the problem was that women in the developed world were being exposed to a lot of bright electric lighting at night that was depressing their melatonin production, whereas women in the developing world were still using kerosene lanterns. In the last 30 years, Richard Stevens' hypothesis has been supported time and time again, with the caveat that it's been found that sensitivity to the total amount of light at night is strongest in premenopausal women and also in women with estrogen receptor positive breast cancers. For example, they found that profoundly blind women whose melatonin production was not influenced by light at night had 50% the rate of breast cancer as their sighted peers. And legally blind women who were not profoundly blind had breast cancer rates that were intermediate between the profoundly blind woman and the sighted woman. Multiple studies were performed using satellite pictures to look at the amount of light pollution in given areas. All the studies that did so found that the more light pollution that was produced, the higher the breast cancer rates. And the strongest such study, looking neighborhood by neighborhood in Israel at over 100 neighborhoods, the neighborhoods that had the most light in the satellite pictures had 72% higher breast cancer rates than neighborhoods with the least light after correcting for other confounding factors. Genetically, they found that women who were more sensitive to having their melatonin decreased by blue light exposure at night were 70% more likely to get breast cancer before menopause. And they found that sunlight is tremendously effective at preventing breast cancer. Women who get the most sunlight have 75% less breast cancer than women who get the least. And if you watch our film, The Basics, you'll understand why getting sunlight during the day, in addition to having darkness at night, increases your total melatonin production. Shift workers who work all night under bright lights have higher rates of breast cancer than other women, and they even took light measurement devices and put it in the bedrooms of different women while they were sleeping. And they found that those women who had the highest amounts of light in their bedroom sleeping area had 20% higher rates of breast cancer. Now, this 20% is different than the 50% and 70% figures I was giving you earlier, And that might indicate that 20% of the increased risk comes from having light in your sleeping area, while 30% of the risk comes from having lights on in the evening after sundown but before you go to sleep. Now, light sources that could be in your bedroom while you're sleeping would include night lights, television screens, and light pollution that is leaking in the window. To show you the toxicity of street lights, we took a spectroscope picture of the high-pressure sodium street light that shines in my bedroom window. You can see that these lights look yellow because there's a large yellow band of light, but there's also a decent amount of toxic blue that will suppress your melatonin. These high-pressure sodium lamps actually cannot be replaced anymore because they contain mercury, and so cities are replacing them with LED lights. Often these LEDs are bright white, making the problem even worse. In addition to increased light pollution from street lights, we've been using brighter and bluer lights in our homes and businesses, and we've had a great increase in nighttime light exposure from computer screens and cell phones. As a result, the rate of invasive breast cancer in premenopausal women has almost doubled between 1976 and 2009. Increasing your melatonin can help prevent breast cancer at any time. If you've already been diagnosed, tumors that are estrogen receptor positive may be more likely to respond to increases in melatonin, but other tumors have been shown to respond as well. To increase your melatonin naturally, get bright sunlight exposure during the day, especially in the morning, and eliminate your bright light exposure after sundown. To find out how to do that, please watch our video on the basics, watch our video on olive oil lamps, and watch our video on light bulbs. If you cannot control your after sundown lighting environment, consider using amber blue blocking glasses. These are different than computer blue blockers, which only block 90% of the blue light. Through the amber glasses, you shouldn't be able to see the color blue at all. In addition, it's been shown that infrared light therapy, if done consistently every day for at least 2 weeks, may increase your melatonin production. If you have a breast cancer diagnosis, you should also test your melatonin levels and make sure that your natural techniques are working. If they're not, consider taking melatonin in pill form. If you are a postmenopausal woman, please watch the accompanying video that we made especially for you. Thank you so much for watching our video today.